For years, you've been told the same thing, haven't you? If the back of your legs feel tight, you need to stretch them. It's the advice we've all heard from coaches, read in magazines, and maybe even gotten from our doctors. And so you do it, religiously. Every morning or after every walk, you bend over, you reach for your toes, and you feel that familiar, intense pulling sensation. You hold it for 30 seconds, maybe even a full minute, breathing through the discomfort, believing you're doing something good for your body. But then, a few hours later, or maybe the next morning, that same old nagging tightness is right back where it started. If you've been stretching your hamstrings for years and have gotten absolutely nowhere, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not alone, and you are not crazy. The advice you've been given, with the best of intentions, might be missing the most critical piece of the puzzle. What if I told you that for many of us, especially as we get older, that feeling of tightness has almost nothing to do with the actual length of your hamstring muscle? And what if that daily stretching routine, the one you've been so diligent about, could actually be making the underlying problem worse? It's a frustrating thought, I know, but stick with me today, because we're going to unravel this frustrating mystery. We're going to explore the real reasons your hamstrings feel perpetually locked up, and I promise to give you a clear, science-backed alternative that can provide the genuine, lasting relief you've been searching for. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. We're tackling a subject that affects millions of people, especially those of us who want to stay active and mobile as we age. Those stubbornly tight hamstrings. If you're like Gary, the person we've based this video on, you've probably spent countless hours trying to stretch that tightness away, only to find it creeping back in, limiting your golf swing, making your daily walks uncomfortable, and creating a constant, low-grade worry about a potential injury. You've done what you were told, and it hasn't worked. The goal of this video is to explain exactly why that is, and to arm you with a new understanding and a new approach. This isn't about some miracle cure or a quick fix. This is about understanding the sophisticated way your body works and shifting our strategy from one of force, aggressively stretching a muscle, to one of intelligence and precision. We're going to journey through a few key ideas together. First, we'll explore what that tightness sensation really is, and how it's often a protective signal from your brain, not a problem with the muscle itself. Then, we're going to uncover a common imposter, a case of mistaken identity, where the real culprit behind your leg tension isn't a muscle at all, but a nerve. After that, we'll discuss the true root cause for so many people, a simple weakness in a nearby muscle group that forces your hamstrings to work overtime, day in and day out. And finally, we'll put it all together into a simple, actionable routine, the try this part of our title, that doesn't involve any of that painful, static stretching you've grown tired of. This new routine is designed to address the real source of the problem, building strength and resilience, so your hamstrings can finally get the message that it's safe to let go. And a quick but important reminder, I am not a doctor or a physical therapist. This video is for educational purposes only, based on current research and clinical understanding in the field of physical therapy and pain science. If you are experiencing sharp, shooting pain, numbness, tingling, or weakness, it is absolutely essential that you consult with your doctor or a qualified physical therapist to get a proper diagnosis. They can help you determine the exact cause of your symptoms and create a plan that is safe and effective for you. Please, always listen to your body and never push through sharp pain. All right, let's start with the first and perhaps biggest mental shift we need to make. We need to reconsider what tightness actually means. For decades, we've operated under a very simple mechanical idea. If a muscle feels tight, it must be too short, and the solution is to pull on it until it gets longer. But your body is far more complex and intelligent than a simple rubber band. Modern pain science has revealed that the sensation of tightness is often not a measure of a muscle's physical length, but a signal from your central nervous system. Think of your brain as the hyper-vigilant CEO of your body. Its number one job is to protect you from injury. When your brain perceives a potential threat, like instability around a major joint like your hip or your lower back, it doesn't send you a polite email. It hits the emergency brake. That sensation of intense, unyielding tightness in your hamstrings is often your nervous system creating what's called protective tension. It's your brain quite literally tightening the muscle to prevent you from moving into a range of motion it deems unsafe. Now here's why your stretching routine feels good for a few minutes and then fails. When you perform a static stretch, you are essentially fighting against that emergency brake. If you hold it long enough, your nervous system might temporarily relent. It says, okay, I see this isn't causing immediate damage, so I'll dial back the alarm bells for a little while. This is a process called stretch tolerance. You haven't actually made the muscle longer in any meaningful, permanent way. You've just temporarily convinced your brain to tolerate a greater stretch. But because you haven't addressed the underlying reason the brain hit the brakes in the first place, that perceived instability or weakness, the brain will simply re-engage the protective tension as soon as you go back to your daily activities. This is the frustrating cycle so many of us are trapped in. Stretch, feel a little better. Tightness returns. Repeat. You're treating the symptom, the alarm bell, without ever investigating what's causing the fire. The first step to real relief is to stop fighting the alarm and start looking for the source of the smoke. This brings us to one of the most common and most misunderstood sources of that alarm signal. Let's talk about the great imposter that lives in the back of your leg. You bend over to touch your toes, and you feel that sharp, electric, pulling line of tension down the back of your thigh. You think, wow, my hamstrings are incredibly tight today. But what if it's not your hamstring muscle you're feeling at all? Running right alongside your hamstring muscles, from your lower back, through your buttocks, and all the way down the back of your leg to your foot, is the largest nerve in your body, the sciatic nerve. When this nerve becomes irritated, sensitive, or a little bit stuck in the tissues it's supposed to glide through, it can create a sensation of tension that is almost identical to the feeling of a tight muscle. Think of it like this. Your nerve is like a piece of silk thread running through a series of small loops. It's designed to glide and slide smoothly as you bend and move. But if that nerve gets inflamed or caught on one of those loops, it can't glide anymore. Now, when you try to straighten your leg, you're not just stretching muscle. You're pulling on that stuck, sensitive nerve. And here's the crucial part. An irritated nerve does not want to be stretched. You wouldn't try to fix a tangled fishing line by pulling on both ends as hard as you can, would you? Of course not. You just create a tighter knot and maybe even snap the line. Aggressively stretching what you think is a tight hamstring can actually be yanking on an already sensitive sciatic nerve, increasing its irritation and sending even more powerful danger signals back to your brain. In response, your brain tightens the surrounding muscles even more to protect the nerve, and the cycle of tightness gets worse. So how can you tell if you might be dealing with nerve tension instead of just muscle tightness? Here's a simple test you can try. Gently. Sit on the edge of a sturdy chair with your back straight. Now, slowly straighten one leg out in front of you until you feel that first bit of tension in the back of your thigh. Don't push into pain. Now, keeping your leg in that exact position, gently point and flex your ankle. is pointing and flexing your foot changes the intensity of the tension in your thigh. That is a very strong clue that you're dealing with nerve tension. Why? Because the small muscles in your foot have no mechanical connection to your hamstring muscle high up in your thigh. But your sciatic nerve connects all the way down to your foot. By moving your ankle, you're gently tugging on the end of that nerve thread, and if it's sensitive, you'll feel it all the way up the chain. If this little test lights up that tension, it's a sign that we need a different strategy, one that doesn't involve pulling on that nerve. So if the problem is a stuck or sensitive nerve, and pulling on it is the wrong approach, what's the right one? The solution is to think less about stretching and more about movement. We need to encourage that nerve to glide and slide freely again. This is a technique physical therapists call nerve flossing or nerve gliding. The name says it all. You're not trying to lengthen the nerve. You're just gently and rhythmically flossing it back and forth through the tissues to restore its natural mobility and calm its sensitivity. It's like gently jiggling that tangled fishing line to help it find its slack. The key here is gentleness. This should never be painful. We're aiming for a sensation of smooth movement, not an intense stretch. Here's how you can perform a simple sciatic nerve floss, again, sitting on the edge of a chair. Start by slumping a little bit, letting your back round and your chin drop towards your chest. From this slumped position, slowly begin to straighten one leg out in front of you, leading with your heel. At the same time as you straighten your leg, lift your head up and look towards the ceiling. You might feel a gentle drawing sensation in the back of your leg. Now, as you bend your knee and bring your foot back to the starting position, simultaneously drop your head back down, bringing your chin to your chest. The movement is a coordinated seesaw. As the leg straightens, the head goes up. As the leg bends, the head goes down. You perform this in a slow, rhythmic, continuous motion. 10 to 15 repetitions on each side is a great place to start. Remember, we're not holding any positions. This is about motion. It's about coaxing, not forcing. By doing this regularly, you can help decrease nerve sensitivity, which in turn tells your brain it can release that protective tension in your hamstrings. This single exercise can be a game changer for people who have been stretching for years with no relief because it addresses a problem that stretching simply can't fix. All right, let's just take a quick pause. We are halfway through this journey, and we've already covered some massive and hopefully eye-opening concepts. We've learned that chronic tightness is often your brain's protective emergency brake, not a short muscle. We've unmasked the sciatic nerve as a common imposter that mimics hamstring tightness. And now you have a gentle, effective tool, the nerve floss, to address that nerve tension directly. You are already looking at this problem in a completely new light. If you're finding this guide helpful and having some of those aha moments, I would be so grateful if you took just a moment to tap that like button below this video. It truly helps our channel reach more people just like you who are looking for real answers. Thank you so much for that. Now let's get back to it, because we still need to ask a critical question. Why did the brain feel the need to hit that emergency brake in the first place? This leads us to the true root cause for so many people with chronically tight hamstrings. The hamstrings rarely work alone. They are part of a team that controls the movement of your hips and pelvis. And the star player on that team, the true powerhouse designed to extend your hip and propel you forward, is your gluteal muscles, your glutes. However, in our modern world of sitting in chairs, sitting in cars, and generally being less active, it's incredibly common for our glutes to become underactive or weak. They get lazy. Physical therapists sometimes call this gluteal amnesia. The muscles have essentially forgotten how to fire properly. But your body still needs to get the job done. It still needs to stabilize your pelvis when you walk, stand up from a chair, or swing a golf club. So what happens when the star player is sitting on the bench? A different player has to step up and do two jobs. And the first volunteer is almost always your hamstrings. They start compensating, working overtime to provide the stability and power that the glutes are supposed to be handling. Now, imagine a muscle that is being asked to do its own job, plus the job of the biggest, strongest muscle in the body. It would be in a constant state of low-level contraction, fatigue, and overwork. I remember my own uncle, a dedicated golfer, who complained for years about his left hamstring. He stretched it constantly. It wasn't until a physical therapist pointed out that his left glute was significantly weaker than his right that things started to click. His hamstring wasn't tight. It was exhausted from doing the work of two muscles. No amount of stretching in the world can fix a problem of overwork caused by weakness elsewhere. It's like trying to fix an employee's burnout by telling them to take more coffee breaks, instead of hiring someone to help with their workload. To give your hamstrings real relief, you have to wake up their powerful neighbors and get them back on the job. So we've calmed down the nerve with flossing, and we've identified that we need to wake up the glutes. Now, we come to the final and perhaps most powerful piece of the puzzle. What do we do with the hamstrings themselves? If passive, static stretching isn't the answer, what is? The answer lies in building a different kind of strength. It's a concept called eccentric strengthening. Now, every muscle contraction has two phases. There's the concentric phase, where the muscle shortens and contracts, like when you lift a grocery bag and your bicep bulges. Then there's the eccentric phase, where the muscle lengthens while it's still under load, like when you slowly lower that same grocery bag back down. For the hamstrings, the eccentric phase happens when you are bending forward at the hips, like in a deadlift motion, controlling your descent. This is where the magic happens. A significant body of research, with studies published in places like the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy, has shown that eccentric strengthening is incredibly effective for improving hamstring flexibility and, most importantly, for preventing injuries. In fact, some studies have shown it to be more effective than static stretching for increasing range of motion. Why? Because you are teaching the nervous system that your hamstrings are strong and capable in a lengthened position. You are replacing the danger signal with a strength signal. Even more remarkably, some research suggests that this type of training can lead to something called sarcomerogenesis. That's a very fancy word, but it simply means your body may actually add new muscle cells in a series, making the muscle fiber itself physically longer and more resilient. So instead of just temporarily increasing your tolerance to a stretch, you are building hamstrings that are fundamentally stronger, longer, and more capable from the inside out. You're not just asking the muscle to relax. You are giving it the strength it needs to feel safe enough to do so. This is the path to that real relief we talked about in the title. Now, let's put all of this knowledge into practice. It's time to move away from the old, ineffective routine and build a new, intelligent one. Here is a simple, 3-step routine that you can do a few times a week. It directly addresses the 3 key issues we've discussed: waking up the glutes, calming the nerve, and building eccentric strength in the hamstrings. Step 1 is the glute bridge. This is to wake up the glutes and remind them to do their job. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, about hip-width apart. Your arms can be resting by your sides. Before you move, I want you to focus on tilting your pelvis slightly so your lower back feels connected to the floor. Now, consciously squeeze your glute muscles, your butt muscles, and use that squeeze to lift your hips up towards the ceiling. You want to create a straight line from your shoulders to your knees. The key here is to make sure you're not using your lower back or your hamstrings to do the lifting. It should feel like your glutes are doing all the work. Hold at the top for a count of 2, giving your glutes an extra squeeze, and then slowly lower back down with control. Aim for 2 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions. Step 2 is the sciatic nerve floss we practiced earlier. This is to ensure the nerve is moving freely before we ask the muscles to work. Sit on the edge of your chair, slump your back, and drop your chin to your chest. Then, as you straighten one leg out, lift your head to look up. As you bring the leg back in, drop your head back down. Perform this in a smooth, rhythmic motion for about 10 to 15 repetitions on each leg. Remember, this should feel gentle and easy, never forced. Step 3 is our eccentric strengthening exercise, the single leg Romanian deadlift, or RDL, using only your body weight. This will build that resilient strength in your hamstrings. Stand on one leg with a very slight bend in that knee. For balance, you can hold onto a chair or a countertop lightly with one hand. Now, keeping your back perfectly straight, this is very important. Hinge forward at your hips as if you're trying to bow. As you hinge forward, let your other leg drift back behind you to act as a counterbalance. Go down only as far as you can while maintaining a flat back and feeling a gentle stretch in the hamstring of your standing leg. A focus is on the slow, controlled lowering portion. That is the eccentric work. Once you've reached your comfortable end range, squeeze the glute of your standing leg to pull your torso back up to the starting position. Don't rush this. Think of a 3-second count on the way down and a 1-second count on the way up. That's it. A simple 3-part routine. Glute bridges to activate, nerve flosses to mobilize, and body weight RDLs to strengthen. This approach addresses the root causes of tightness rather than just chasing the symptom. It's a proactive plan that builds a stronger, more resilient, and better coordinated lower body. So let's take a moment and summarize the incredible wins you've achieved today. You've stepped away from an old, frustrating model and into a new, empowered one. Your first win is understanding that your body isn't failing you. That tightness isn't a sign that you're broken or just getting old. It's an intelligent signal from a protective nervous system. Your second win is the ability to identify the real culprit. You now know to ask, is this my muscle or could it be my sciatic nerve? And you have a tool to begin exploring that question. Your third and most important win is that you now have a targeted, logical plan of action. Instead of mindlessly pulling on a muscle, you have a 3-step strategy. Activate the glutes, mobilize the nerve, and build eccentric strength in the hamstrings. This is the difference between blindly chopping at a tree and using a key to unlock a door. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which of these points was the biggest aha moment for you? Was it the idea of protective tension, the sciatic nerve imposter, or the role of weak glutes? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Reading your stories helps everyone in this community learn and feel less alone on their journey. And finally, if you enjoyed this deep dive and want more content that respects your intelligence and empowers you with real science-backed knowledge to take control of your health, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the little notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Be well, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next video.